Let's discuss this with Ahmed Bayram, a Middle East media advisor at the Norwegian Refugee Council. He's in Beirut. So, Ahmed, these stories are obviously heartbreaking to see children suffer like that. But once they become adults, it's not as if they have any kind of support system or care or attention. What does this mean for this generation?
Good morning. Now, of course, yes, children who are born or who are in an orphan situation, children who are orphaned by the war in Syria and beyond, of course, are born with advantage, and they are with disadvantage. Sorry, and they are growing up in disadvantage. It means that they don't have equal access to services. It means they are already don't have the opportunities that children with one or two parents have. Now, of course, these children live in communities that are almost invisible to the outside world. We come across children who are undocumented still as part of our programs. In some situations, these children are in complex situations where they are born to mothers who were married underage and who lost their husbands. This is a complex situation where the child cannot even prove their identity. The situation is complex for this for this category, for this group of children who are, of course, in displacement contexts, in war contexts. They are growing up without education, without the emotional support, and without the love that parents provide.
You know, one question you often get is, why can't I adopt one of these orphans? You can imagine the millions of childless couples around the world, or somebody who would love to welcome a child like this into their home and give them a future. Why is that so difficult, if not impossible?
Now, of course, in our context in the Middle East, where I sit, it's not a cultural norm to adopt. There are lots of complexities. We usually see a lot of children who lost a parent or two being taken into the care of kinship, which is, of course, provides the closest alternative to being in your parents' care. We see institutions taking care of children as well, but normally in this context, it's not a cultural norm for children to be adopted. Now, of course, for us, children have to be prioritized in their access to care, in their access to education, and their access to equal opportunities, whatever the context, because these children are at double disadvantage when they are born into a war or when they are born in a context of displacement. They have lost a parent or two, and they are starting to understand what happened to them. This is very delicate when the children start to recognize that the people I live with are not my parents. And this is where the emotional support has to be provided immediately, whether that is from the kinship where they are, or whether that is from organizations that look after providing emotional support for children.
Well, because there are so many, we're talking about millions and millions here. Do you think that cultural norm ought to be more flexible?
Now that depends on the laws of the countries and the context that we talk about. It's not just a cultural question. Of course, it is a legal question. And as I mentioned before, we come across children who cannot even prove who their parents are because their parents were born in situations where they had to flee a home, where they're probably the husband or the father or the mother went missing. Now, of course, there are complexities around that, and we're talking about legal frameworks. On top of the cultural norms. Of course, there is more acceptance, and we have situations where children have been supported to stay with people who are extended relatives or even friends of their parents. But this has to have, we're talking about overhauling a whole system and overhauling the legal framework for these situations.
Yeah, and who is the victim of bureaucracy and things that move slowly? Those very same children who are the victims of war. All right, Ahmed, thanks so much.
Thank you.